Welcome to another inspiring conversation with an amazing leader. I'm Marc Pitman, the author of The Surprising Gift of Doubt. And instead of celebrating, today is our launch day of the book, yay! And instead of celebrating it
Yay.
by just waiting pensively, seeing if people are going to write reviews and purchase, my wife suggested that I talk to people I like and inspire me and introduce them to people I
I
know.
know exactly what you're talking about, Mark.
I noticed that when you said that last week. Yeah, because your book just came out. When did your book come out, Rob?
October 6th. So
Okay.
it's actually just shy of 6 months, or just beyond 6 months. So
So we have
uh,
in our presence today, we have Rob Hatch. He's a good friend of mine, somebody I've known for years and years and years, and we've done life together at different periods. And the our kids are similar ages, but also he's newly shortlisted for an international business award. Is that right? With your book?
yeah, the Business Book Awards shortlisted my book for both international best international business book and an overall best business book. So we'll see. We'll see more in May, but I so excited to be honored by it. But we're here to talk about your book, sir.
But
Your book.
it's your yes. Okay, great. Well, I wouldn't
Thank
have you
you
here
for
if I
pointing it
yeah.
out, but
So if you're
this
watching
is
on
you.
Amazon Live, his book is right about here, and mine is probably over here somewhere on the screen. And be sure to follow also so that you can get the notifications the other ones are having. Rob, I love the way that you talk about helping people in your coaching. How have you seen doubt people successfully kind of embrace doubt or move through it and realize that they're not alone in having it?
Well, I think in your, as you point out in your book, it's a bit of a process, right? You know, people are going through these stages of leadership, and I love this is what I loved about the quadrants that you
Mm-hmm.
lay out is I recognize myself in each quadrant at different points in my leadership journey. You know, from the first time I got the promotion from being a standout performer in some particular area to hey, here now you're in charge is always a weird transition. And it I loved that you did that. So when I'm listening to or talking with some of my coaching clients, uh, you hear it all the time. They question themselves. They It just comes up as part of the leadership journey. I think anyone who is truly confident is at a place where they're not maybe looking for the type of support unless they're venturing into something entirely new, right? There's a
Mm.
People come to me, and I'm sure with you as well, at a kind of a critical juncture in their process.
Yeah.
They could be moving from one quadrant to another, or they could be just facing some really tough decisions or leadership challenges in their organization, and they just need someone. And you point this out really well in the book too, that it's really lonely once you move. And I'm trying to remember the name of the person that you gave an example of in the beginning. But there was a woman who was sort of thrust into this position, uh, and 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 there was this sort of loneliness that she used to get feedback and used to be able to collaborate with the people around
Mm.
her, and now all of a sudden everyone's looking at you. And so that's the stuff where I feel like a coach, someone that you can confide in, someone outside of the circle is really helpful, because and they need that ability to process. Family doesn't do it well, friends don't
Yeah.
do it so well, unless you find the right perfect person, because they're not going to call you out on your crap. They're gonna
Or if they do,
they're
you're going to call them back.
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That you really have to articulate the relationship well. So for
Did you?
me, that's why
It
it
seems
comes
like
up.
coaching is very natural for you for all the years I've known you. Did you always think of yourself as a coach, or was that an evolution process?
Evolution, but I realized it pretty before I became a coach. I started to realize the pattern that my job, I was better suited to helping people do their work better, which is what I ended up writing down as my mission one day. Like that,
Oh
I
wow.
I was a good teacher when I was a teacher, but there were so many people who were so much better than I was at
Hmm.
that in that role. And my skill set was finding those people and doing whatever I could to support them and help them be excellent teachers. And I found that I was really good at that at various points. And so it was I settled into that at some point in one of the organizations that I was running, and started to just really kind of feel that this is what I'm meant for,
That's really cool.
and
Yeah,
that's okay.
it was wonderful watching you move into owning coaching as a, because I've received coaching from you. There's a lot of other people, families have, and you have a gift of helping people focus and just also being a calming influence. Just okay, you create space, which is just really really wonderful.
Thank you.
One of the things I love, and we clearly resonate on, is the idea of frameworks and not formulas. And you're right about that. Can you
Yes.
talk a little bit about that? Because the formula, the quadrant 3 leadership, which I talk about in the book, is also not a formula. It's organic.
Right.
I guess it's a framework. There's options that you can do in here. But could you explain a little bit more when you talk about frameworks? What are you talking about?
Well, when I'm talking about frameworks and not formulas, I mean, and again, you talk about this in the book too, that there's this outward pursuit of ideas, right? You're trying to find something, and maybe it's based on some preconceived notion about what a successful leader
Hmm.
looks like. And so you gravitate, and maybe there's a productivity system, and there's this over here and that, and none of it seems to quite fit. But there are common elements. There are frameworks. For example, if you're building a house, you need a foundation, you need support beams, you need a roof over your head. How it looks inside, how things flow and move, the design aspect of that, maybe there's some general design principles, but the real details of that can be up to you. So the idea of building on a framework and designing something that fits you is far more appealing than trying to fit in and follow a formula. Anytime I've tried to follow a particular formula, I just get hitched up, and then it falls apart, and I'm going to do one of two things. I'm going to blame the formula, or I'm going to blame myself for being an idiot. And
Yeah.
usually it's the latter, but when I started to understand that there are principles that I can operate from, rather than, and that's the framework for me. So what are my principles? What are my values?
Hmm.
And how it looks is different. And honestly, over time, as I think you probably agree, it looks a little different at each stage of your life and stage of your leadership journey too. That if you maybe the same methods aren't working for you, but so you return to that framework, or return to your values and your principles, and re-examine it and say, what does this look like now in this situation? It has to look a little different.
Yeah, and it's easy to sometimes get stuck. I don't know if I was talking to you last week when I shared that in my mid 40s, I felt like I knew I was making very good moves in my business.
Mm-hmm.
It was like I was playing checkers and I did like a triple jump. I was just ruling. It was awesome. I was winning, but it was like the whole board game had changed. It was a Settlers of Catan board game, and the
Yeah.
checker moves had no. They meant nothing to this game. And so it's like,
Right.
I know this is good, but so the adaptability and having to adapt and think, okay, how do I be now in this what is this new space? How do I be here? And knowing what the principles were are important.
Yeah, and that's where I think a lot of the exercises that you have in the book kind of are a return to, even your magnet goals, right? That whole process of boiling it down really gets to what do I really want, in my life and my business. You get to this sort of core set of things that you're eager to pursue, and then the process of figuring out how to get there is going to be different. Like you said, in your 40s, the game, you were making great moves, but the game felt a little off. So you had to make some adjustments and figure out, what does that look like now?
So part of what I'm intrigued by now, because you mentioned you have your mission, you finally wrote down as your mission. There was a phrase or a sentence. You've talked about
Mm-hmm.
values. You've run. Am I remembering this correctly? You've run gyms. You've run nonprofits. You've helped parents parent kids and become more engaged parents with Bradshaw. And then you've helped internet online businesses and business owners, and you help untold others through writing and coaching. Have those been a natural progression for you, or what have been some guideposts in helping you know that you're fully present and you're fully you in each of these different roles?
So the first, it can actually kind of be chunked up into two things. There's a long list of things in there, but uh, the first half of my career I went to school for early childhood education and human development. So working with young children and families was really, a passion of mine. And that's where I started to learn that, maybe not I was a good classroom teacher. I had a lot of fun, the kids had fun too, but really being in a more, being a director of a childcare center, being a director of multiple schools, that was more suited to my abilities and just helping the teachers themselves and the schools be successful. That led me to, yes, I did start some childcare centers in fitness centers in Massachusetts for a while, oddly enough, called Zoom rooms, which has now been taken over. But we built those facilities there so that children had actually a good environment while their parents were working out, something that was safe and meaningful. And then I moved into running a nonprofit, but that nonprofit was also serving children with special needs and their families. And, I worked with, as you mentioned, Dr. T. Barry Brazelton for a while and his team.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so that part of the journey is all tied into human development, early childhood education. And then again, this is sort of where the thread of coaching begins. This idea of maybe I'm not the person doing the direct service. I want to support the people who are in ways that helps them to be successful and fulfill the mission of whatever organization I was in. And then the switch came when I started working with Chris Brogan, who's a good friend, and he approached me about joining him. And at first I said no, because I loved my work. I loved the mission of my work, but it wasn't until I figured out how I could fulfill the mission, in this work and helping, now it's small business owners, do their best work, right? I'm not in there running their business. I don't know their businesses any better than they do. They know it. They are the expert. My job is to help them think through where they are, and if they're trying to make a decision, we gather information and what do we need to know so that we can make a decision that we feel really good about and set a plan for. And then eventually we'll come to another decision. And it's just about, gathering that, making the decision together. But
I remember that actually. I remember that time frame too, because there was I think we met because of a training, Ask Without Fear training I was doing.
I took your fundraising 101, Ask Without
right.
Fear.
It was pre-Ask Without
Fear.
Yeah.
Yes, it was at the community college, I think, in Lewiston, if I'm not, or Auburn or something.
Yep, very good. And then you said to me, I've got this friend Chris, and he kind of tests out this new stuff. You might like this thing. It's called Twitter. And I've been on it, since 2007, I think, because of you.
2007, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really funny.
So thank you. And I went through the same, like, I don't know what this is. Who cares what tuna fish sandwich I had today for lunch? For me, it was the Red Sox. I remember that. I was watching the Red Sox. We'd gone cordless again, and it was watching on Twitter with the 4 feeds on one of their feeds and seeing, Shell and others talking about the Red Sox. I was like, I'm in.
That's great.
I was hooked on Twitter. So thank you for that. What are some things that you find helpful for people as you're coaching them through these things? First of all, is there a doubt in them? Coaching is different than consulting, mentoring, therapy, in the sense that, especially like you said, we're not the expert in the other person's sector or field, no more than we're the expert in their life. Like they know themselves better than we do. But are there ways that you help them show, like, is it early wins? Is it word of mouth that you can be trusted and that coaching may be a good toolkit for them or a good tool for them to use?
Well, the first thing I ever do is just get on the phone with someone, and I used to do this sort of discovery call, and what I started to realize is rather than explain to them how it works, we just kind of dive in, and so we'll do a half-hour coaching call, and that's how we begin. And at the end of it, I say, "This is kind of how it works," because already by the end of our first call, there are some things that I've pulled out that are resonating. Hopefully, I mean, it doesn't always work that way, but most of the time there's something that resonates with them and they'll find useful. And that's when I just sort of say this, that's how it kind of feels. And this is how it progresses. The other thing that I find that's really super helpful is just to say right up front, our first conversations are going to be really awkward. You might actually get off the phone and go, I don't know what we just did, or, it may not make sense or whatever. And because it's a relationship and we have to develop it, but we do hit a stride, probably mid-second call. There's this, even after, there's always something from the first call where I always feel, like we've connected and we're moving things along. But there is this point in a relationship like that where things just start to go, oh, okay, yeah, this feels good. And we get to know each other a little bit. I hear a lot of little patterns in their voice, and that for me is everything. I like to listen. I do all of my coaching on the phone. I think we were talking about that it's an auditory thing for me. I can kind of close my eyes and just hear different nuances in their voice a lot better than I can if I'm, on video.
Well, and that's where I think maybe that part of it, as you know, because we've talked, the surprising gift of doubt is the first time in my 18 years of being an executive coach, I feel like I can actually explain what coaching is, what I do as a coach, and as particularly in a way that people get it. Usually it would be, so what do you do? I'm an executive coach. Oh, cool. What is that? What do you do again?
What does that mean?
And it was even my best friends were like, what is that you do? So this is as I share the
that all, it still happens.
As I share the four quadrants, or particularly the four quadrants, where you said you could see yourself in each quadrant in different stages. People have repeated those back to me after just sharing a sketch of that. That's when I knew I was onto something.
Yeah.
And so I too am an auditory person, because you can hear people say, I really should go buy Facebook ads. But what they're really saying, but the way they say it is, yeah, I really should go buy Facebook ads. I'm excited about that. And you could hear the quality of their voice, and just having the permission to say, hey, I noticed you said this, like, this is what's right. But it doesn't sound nearly as energizing as when you said you wanted to, do this other thing over here. Really? It's no permission giving for them.
It is great. And you're absolutely right. But I think you just hit on, you've asked the question a couple different ways, and I don't think I've actually fully answered it yet around where doubt shows up.
Yeah.
And that right there, Mark, is particularly with solopreneurs and entrepreneurs. That tends to be who I work with, is small business owners and solopreneurs. And the amount of information that is coming at us, and that we see, it looks like everyone else is crushing it, whatever that means, which I makes me sick to my stomach just to hear those words. But they're all that sort of outward noise about defining our success and what success looks like, and it looks like someone else is really doing well, and how come I'm not doing as well, and all that stuff. That's where the doubt creeps in, and they all feel like they should be doing something that they're not doing. And I hear that over, I really should be on Twitter. I really should be on Instagram, or I really should be on LinkedIn. I should be, I should be updating my website. Like, slow down.
I should be checking my calendar. I should be doing this. I should be on that. Yeah.
Right. Let's just pick one, or pick something. Let's start with, as you were saying before, some small wins. More than anything, the first things that I think happen is just to give permission to let go of some of that, and just say, we're developing a process for you that's rooted in who you are, what your strengths are, what works for you. And then we're going to help you maintain consistency with that, because it's your plan that you're going to develop. You don't forget it then.
It's not like you have to remember what was the 7th of the 7 habits, or what was the 15 different intentions, or whatever. Yeah, it's who I am. So one of the things that I love about the way you teach is putting success in your way. Is that did I get the phrase right?
Put success in your way. Yeah, that's the sort of foundational principle of my course that I've done in the book.
So could you teach people, could you talk a little bit about that and how you help business owners put success in their way? Because I don't think people are intentional about that usually.
Put success in your way is a principle that's based on three different elements. One, that our willpower is limited, that it sort of wears out. It's not this endless well that we can just grab onto at any moment. That decisions are distractions, our decision
Wait a minute.
making
On that first
ability.
one, is that why I eat chips in the evening as opposed to in the morning? Like I have
Yes, it is
eggs and olive
exactly why
oil.
you're
Okay.
crashing, and your decision making is so. And we'll use that in a second.
Okay.
So decision making ability, right? That's something that also wears out. And so for every
Hmm.
decision you make, your ability to make subsequent decisions is degraded.
Hmm.
And so those little tiny things that we put in front of ourselves, like what should I wear, what should I eat,
Yeah.
what am I doing today, all those little tiny decisions are chipping away at at your ability to make the more important big decisions throughout the day. And then the last is that the third element is that habits are a powerful biological force, that we rely on them. They're actually good. We talk about bad habits a lot,
Hmm.
but we want to talk about forming really good habits, like things like we brush our teeth, we tie our shoes. We don't have to think about those things. They just are there. If we had to think about tying our shoes every single time, it's so ingrained. We're like left, right, which loop, over, through. We don't do
Although through
that
the
anymore. It's
pandemic, I've worn
just
shoes so infrequently that I wonder if I do have to think about it. But
right. You might
yes,
have
in a
to think
normal
about
time.
it a little bit. So though using the understanding of those three things, the idea with put success in your way is, what do I need in front of me to do this, to make this work easier? If I have to look for the things that I need, for
Mm.
example, if I need to make 10 sales calls, if I'm looking around for who am I going to call, I can't just put make 10 sales calls on my to-do list. I want to know, I want to have the names ready, the numbers ready, and a little note. And I want it served up to me. So put success in my way means having all of those things pre-worked. Because if I'm looking around in my email for who or anywhere else for this information, I'm going to get distracted, sidetracked, and it makes the whole process harder. Same thing with exercise. Having
Hmm.
decided the night before, I'm going to go run. I'm going to go run for this long. This is the route I'm going to take. These are the clothes that I'm going to need. And all that's decided and set out for me. So then I can just basically fall into those clothes and get outside. For me, it's never the run that's hard. It's the get out the door that's hard. So how do I put success in my way to get out the door? Because once I'm out there, I'm going to run. There's just once you're in the gym, you're not going to stand there. So what do you need to get there? Uh, you know, that's the basic premise of put
I
success in
love
your
that
way
because there's
is
two
setting it
things
up.
that I realized I've adapted. One of the things, to-do lists don't really work for me. I
Agreed.
love writing them, but I forget them. So scheduling my to-dos has been really good. Like I had an article that was due for a company last week, and it was not great because it was launch week, but I still did it. And there was a block of time, and I just didn't have to make the decision. Do I do it or not? That's what this time is. I'm just going to gut it out and do it, and ended up getting it done. So that's kind of
And
cool. Go ahead.
and that adaptation, this is exactly when we go back to frameworks, not formulas. When I'm talking to people about put success in your way, like that's perfect. Like I would never muck with that. I would say, "Oh, Mark, you're not like
You
no,
should
you
use,
figured it
yeah,
out, right? Like you
to
figured it
doist or
out. You
something.
just
Yeah.
you knew what you needed, and it's working for you. And so you effectively put success in your way. It's a framework. That's again, there's a principle. There's three elements. You adapted it. You made it work for you. You got it done.
And
Like
the other part for you
why
is
would I
the,
argue?
yeah, exactly. The Notion app is my friend Jeff Gibbard showed me Notion, and for me it was sales calls. It was just honoring prospects, but not putting them into a email system that said you have to unsubscribe from this email that they never subscribed for. It's just my follow up process. So yeah, having it all there has made it so much easier because I know I'm duplicating effort and I know there's other things that I should be doing, but it's on a dashboard and I have them right there so I can contact them really quickly and easily, and it automatically
It's what
opens
you
up when the
need,
computer powers on.
right?
So that's really cool.
That's just it. Like, what do you need? What does put success in your way look like for you? That's all that matters. And so this is why I think you're designing your house, you're designing your productivity house, whatever, and there's just some foundations that you figured out you needed, and that's how it serves you. There's something else. It was something else that caught my eye in the book as I was reading it. You were talking about, I think it was in the magnet goals section, and the idea that initially, and you kind of did this, like, sometimes bristle, like goal setting feels like formulaic, or it feels like a little rigid. Mm-hmm. But your process, you say very clearly up front, we're going to work on goals that serve you, not you serving your goals all the time, right? I think that's, am I hearing that, remembering that right?
If you're not, I will own it. That's good. You know what it's like to ask an author. When you wrote this in chapter 17, they're like, I wrote that 6 months ago and I haven't read it yet for the audio book. Right. But that sounds like something I would say.
That's a fun process. Yeah. So I love that. Again, I mean, honestly, there's so many great points in your book where you kind of own either awkwardness. I mean, right out of the gate, sort of acknowledging, I mean, here we are, two middle-aged white guys talking about leadership. Surprise, surprise, right? Like,
shocking.
Like, this is, no one needs to hear again from us, but you own that privilege right up front. And the rest of the book, unfolds with that tone in mind. You acknowledge that there's some blind spots that you might have. You acknowledge the privilege that is undeserved. And I so appreciated you setting the tone. I think that's,
and it was more than acknowledging. It was also thank you, but it was also not just saying, oh yes, I recognize this, and so part of my process was I hired people to do diversity, inclusion, and equity reviews of this before I even thought it was worthy putting out into the world, because the vulnerability of doing that it was much better. The book is much better because of the,
I mean, from my perspective, it shows, like, what do I know? but it is that's another process, right? That you've been willing to make yourself vulnerable to. And I love that. And again, the way that tied into the goals thing for me, and even what I was saying before about talking with coaching clients, is this isn't perfect, but if you acknowledge that there's going to be some weirdness, or acknowledge that you're coming at this from a perspective and you're working really hard to try and understand it, it at least puts out there. So I appreciated that as a parent of a Black child who's always working on undoing some of these things. It's very, it's important to me in general, but it's become emphasized, let's just say, in some way, shape, or form, and really trying to be there for her and understand what my blind spots and my own biases. So I appreciated you setting the tone like that in the front.
Well, thanks so much. It was what I was really pleased, as I've been reflecting on that and hearing other people acknowledge that statement, was that it was, even though I wrote this during the pandemic and in the wake of George Floyd's murder, it was predating that. This is part of who I am, which was just kind of affirming. Just sort of like, it's not just a fad thing. This is trying to right social inequities that have been entrenched for centuries. So that's great. Well, I am so honored that you're celebrating with me here. I'm so honored that you're asking me very specific questions about the book that are general frameworks. I remember, but that person's name. So
I'll pull it up.
If there were anything you'd leave people that are watching, and again, if you're just joining us, we're at Conversations with Rob Hatch. He's at robhatch.com, author of Attenion, which should be about here on Amazon Live, and my book's over there, and it happens to be right here on the screen too. If you're not watching on Amazon Live, feel free to buy the books anyway. They're available wherever fine books are sold. If there's any last kind of inspiration or strategy or something that you'd want to share with leaders, particularly solopreneurs and business owners, what would that be before we wrap up today, do you think?
Well, I honestly, Mark, thank you for having me, and congratulations on the launch. I'm really excited. While I'm talking, you can do a little refresh and let people know that they should go buy the paperback version of yours, but do a little refresh on your stats right now for me while I'm chatting. So
refreshing,
but refresh. I know we said we weren't going to do that, but you should.
But thanks for the permission. See, you're such a good coach. You should permission celebrate. To do that.
this is an exciting day. You should celebrate it. It's a great book. So honestly, it is about, I mean, it's rooted in that gift that doubt is. It's, we all go through this. And if recognizing myself in those stages was so reassuring to say, yeah, that happened to me. And to know that other leaders are sitting in that doubt. Other leaders sometimes get stuck at quadrant 2 and can still be great leaders. You may not have to progress through that. It was just a very affirming book. And then it gave me this idea, or I feel like it gives people, particularly newer leaders, a launch pad, some permission as well to say, oh, this is kind of where I am, and that's okay. And just it encouraged a lot of introspection and acceptance that this is a process. And so I would encourage people to buy the book, is what I would do. And
well, thank you. That wasn't where I was going, but yay, thank you.
And I will do if folks like, if they want to, if they go buy the paperback version of your book right now and shoot me an email in the next, couple of, just sometime today, I'll send people a free copy of my audiobook.
Oh, that's awesome.
I've got 3 to give away.
Amy Sheridan saying she can't wait to get her copy. So maybe she'll do, you have 3 to give away. Rob at robhatch.com.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And so shoot me an email, but go buy Marc's book and then tell me you bought Marc's book. And I'm going to believe you. I'm not going to make you prove it, but I'm going to believe you because you're good
That's
people,
short.
right? Yeah, exactly.
Rob Hatch, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
People, definitely check out robhatch.com. His emails is one of the few that I get every week and pay attention to. So thank you for celebrating with me, and have a great rest of your day.
Congratulations, friend.
Thank you. Thanks.
Take care.